Welcome to Hungarian Insights, your go-to channel for exploring Hungary's rich history, vibrant culture, and language learning resources. Whether you're a student planning to study in Hungary, an expat eager to grasp the nation's heritage, an individual preparing for the Hungarian citizenship exam, or a bilingual student seeking to complement your studies, our podcasts serve as a captivating starting point, and our smart, modern learning tips and resources are tailored to make your journey enjoyable and effective.
Welcome to our Hungary Insights podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Emma. Welcome back. Ready to dig a little deeper into Hungary.
You bet. We've covered a lot of ground already, from the Carpathian Basin to goulash and liquid gold. But I think it's time to shift gears a bit and look at how Hungary actually functions as a country. We mentioned that it's a republic with a parliamentary system, but I'd love to hear more about the nitty-gritty. How does the government actually work in practice?
Okay, let's break it down, starting with the key players. At the very top, you've got the president of Hungary.
The president, right. What exactly do they do? Are they the one calling all the shots?
Not exactly. They're more like the head of state, which is largely a ceremonial role. Think representing Hungary on the international stage, attending all the official events, being a symbol of national unity, that kind of thing. They're more like the face of the country, but don't have a ton of direct political power.
So, a bit of a figurehead, but with a lot of symbolic importance.
Exactly. They play a key role in maintaining stability and continuity within the government, but they're not the ones making those day-to-day policy decisions.
Got it. So if the president is more of a symbolic leader who's actually running the show, who's making those big decisions?
That's where the prime minister comes in. They're the head of the government, meaning they're responsible for leading the cabinet, setting the direction for the country, and putting policies into action.
Okay, so they're the ones with the real political power. How do they get chosen? Do the people vote directly for the prime minister?
Not directly. It's Hungary's parliament, called the National Assembly, that elects the prime minister. Whichever political party or coalition of parties has the majority of seats in the National Assembly gets to choose their leader to become prime minister.
So it all boils down to those parliamentary elections.
Exactly. The people of Hungary vote for their representatives in the National Assembly, and then those representatives decide who will lead the government. It's a system that aims to make sure the government reflects the will of the people.
Makes sense. So we've got the president, the prime minister, the National Assembly. Are there any other big players in the Hungarian government we should know about?
We can't forget about the Constitutional Court. They play a pretty important role.
Ooh, the Constitutional Court. That sounds pretty serious. What do they do?
They're the guardians of the Hungarian Constitution, basically. Their job is to make sure that all the laws and government actions are in line with the Constitution, which is the ultimate legal authority in the country.
So they have a lot of power. Can they actually overturn laws if they think they go against the Constitution?
You bet. They're there to provide a check and balance on the other parts of the government, making sure no one oversteps their bounds and ensuring the fundamental rights of Hungarian citizens are protected.
That's a huge responsibility. So how are the members of this Constitutional Court chosen? I imagine it's a pretty important process.
It is. The process is set up to make sure they're independent and impartial. The National Assembly appoints them, but it requires a supermajority vote, which means a big chunk of parliament has to agree.
So it's not just a case of the ruling party putting their own people in place.
Nope, it requires a pretty broad consensus, and that helps to make sure that the people on the Constitutional Court are beholden to the Constitution itself, not any particular political party or ideology.
That's a good system.
Yeah.
Sounds like they've really tried to build in safeguards to make sure no one person or group gets too much power.
Definitely. And it's important to remember that this system didn't just appear out of thin air. Hungary has a long and complicated history, with periods of monarchy, communism, and now this modern republic. All of that has shaped the way their government works today.
Right. History always leaves its mark. Speaking of history and Hungary's place in the world, you mentioned that they're part of the European Union. Did joining the EU have a big impact on the way their government operates?
Oh, absolutely. Being a part of the EU means Hungary has to line up its laws and policies with certain European standards, particularly things like human rights, environmental protections, and economic regulations.
So it's a bit of a trade-off. They get access to the benefits of being in the EU, but they also have to play by certain rules.
Precisely. And this plays out in lots of areas of government. For instance, the EU has requirements for judicial independence, which has led to some interesting discussions within Hungary about how to balance their own sovereignty with their commitments to the EU.
It's a balancing act, for sure, navigating national interests and the goals of the EU. Speaking of national interests, what are some of the key things the Hungarian government is focused on these days? What are their top priorities?
Well, like any government, economic growth is always high on the agenda. They're working on attracting foreign investment, promoting innovation, and helping small businesses thrive.
So creating jobs and strengthening the economy. Pretty standard stuff for any government.
Totally. And along with economic growth, they're focused on making sure their social safety net is strong, which we touched on earlier. That means improving healthcare access, investing in education, and providing support for the most vulnerable people in society.
Sounds like they're trying to create a society where everyone has a chance to succeed.
Absolutely. And another big focus is infrastructure. They're working on expanding and modernizing their transportation network, upgrading their energy grid, and improving digital connectivity across the country.
Makes sense. A good infrastructure is key to having a strong economy and a high quality of life. It's interesting to see how these different priorities are shaping the future of the country.
It's definitely a complex picture and it's always evolving, but that's what makes it so fascinating to study. Always something new to learn.
I completely agree. So we've talked about the structure of the Hungarian government, their big priorities, and how they juggle their own interests with being part of the EU. But what about the people actually making all of this happen? Who are some of the major figures in Hungarian politics today?
Well, the biggest name is probably the current prime minister. They've been in office for a while now and have definitely left their mark on the country. They're a pretty controversial figure, loved by some, criticized by others, but no one can deny their impact on Hungarian politics.
Sounds like they've made some waves. Anyone else shaping the conversation in Hungary right now?
Oh, for sure. There's a pretty lively opposition, with several different parties vying for power. They represent a whole range of viewpoints and ideas, offering different visions for where Hungary should go in the future. It's a dynamic political scene, and the debates can get pretty intense.
Sounds like Hungarian politics is anything but boring.
Definitely not. And it's important to remember that these political battles have real-world impacts on people's lives. The policies that get passed, the decisions that are made, they affect things like the cost of healthcare, the quality of education, and the job market.
Right. It's easy to forget that politics isn't just some abstract game. It has real consequences for real people.
Exactly. And if you want to understand the challenges and opportunities Hungary faces as a nation, you have to understand the complexities of their political system.
Well said. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground in terms of Hungarian politics and governance, but I know there's so much more to this country. You mentioned earlier that Hungary has this rich cultural heritage. What are some of the things that make Hungarian culture so unique and special?
Oh, where to even begin? Hungary's got history and tradition coming out of its ears. They've got a vibrant cultural scene that includes everything from music and dance to art, literature, and of course, amazing food.
Okay, I'm ready for a cultural deep dive. What are some of the things I absolutely can't miss if I want to understand Hungarian culture?
Let's start with something that's close to the heart of every Hungarian: thermal baths.
Thermal baths, really. I'm all ears.
Oh, yeah. Hungary's famous for its natural hot springs, and bathing culture is a big part of their history and daily life. Budapest, their capital, is often called the city of spas because it's got so many beautiful thermal baths.
Wow, a city built on hot springs. That's incredible. What's so special about these thermal baths? Are they just for relaxation or is there something more to it?
It goes way beyond just relaxation. For Hungarians, the baths are a place to hang out with friends and family, socialize, even do business. They're an important part of their social life, a real window into Hungarian culture.
I can see the appeal: soaking in a hot spring, chatting with friends, maybe even closing a business deal or two. Sounds like a perfect way to spend an afternoon.
It's definitely a must-do if you ever visit Hungary. And while you're soaking, you might even hear some traditional Hungarian music in the background, adding to the whole experience.
Speaking of music, I want to circle back to those Hungarian folk music traditions you mentioned earlier. What are some of the things that make their folk music so unique?
Well, it's got these really distinctive melodies, often with a haunting, almost melancholic feel to them. And rhythmically, it's quite complex. They use some unusual time signatures and syncopated rhythms that can be tricky if you're not used to them.
Sounds fascinating. What are some of the instruments they typically use in their folk music?
One of the most iconic is the cymbalom. It's a kind of hammered dulcimer that's got this bright, resonant sound that's very recognizable. And then you've got the taragato, which is a woodwind instrument with a deeper, mournful sound that adds a whole other layer of emotion to the music.
Okay, I'm picturing those instruments and the music is coming alive in my head. Is there a certain type of Hungarian folk music that's especially popular or well known?
One of the most famous is called sardas. It's a really lively dance music with a distinct structure. It starts off slow and gradually gets faster and faster, building in intensity as it goes on.
A dance that starts slow and then just explodes with energy. I love that. It seems like a perfect reflection of that Hungarian spirit we've been talking about.
Exactly. And speaking of the Hungarian spirit, we can't forget about their folk dances.
Oh, right. You mentioned earlier that the dances are known for being lively and energetic.
Yeah.
What makes them so unique and visually captivating?
One of the things that sets them apart is the focus on a really intricate footwork and swirling movements. The dancers often wear these brightly colored costumes with elaborate embroidery, which just adds to the visual spectacle.
I can only imagine. Twirling, stomping, colorful costumes. It sounds amazing. Are there any specific dances that are especially famous or important in Hungary?
One of the most iconic is the verbunk. It's a men's solo dance that actually originated in the military. Lots of athleticism and bravura, with the dancer leaping and twirling, showing off his strength and skill.
A men's solo dance with leaps and twirls. That sounds incredibly impressive. And I'm guessing the women have their own equally captivating dances.
Of course. One of the most popular is the karikazo. It's a circle dance that you often see at weddings and other celebrations. All the women join hands and move gracefully in a circle, creating a sense of unity and joy.
That sounds beautiful. It's starting to become clear why folk dance is such an important part of their cultural heritage. It's more than just entertainment, it's a way to connect with tradition, express emotions, and celebrate life.
Exactly. And you see that same sense of tradition and artistry in Hungarian folk art, too.
Right, we talked about Hungarian embroidery and pottery earlier, but I'm eager to hear more. What are some of the things that make them so special?
One of the things that really stands out is the use of bold colors and intricate patterns. Take their embroidery, for example. It's known for these vibrant floral motifs, often stitched in bright reds, yellows, and blues. The visual impact is stunning.
I've seen some examples, and you're right, absolutely breathtaking. Is there a particular style of Hungarian embroidery that's especially famous?
One of the most celebrated styles is called Kaluxa embroidery. It comes from the town of Kaluxa in southern Hungary, and it's known for using floral motifs, often carnations and tulips arranged in these symmetrical, intricate patterns.
Alexa embroidery, got it. Definitely gonna have to look up some examples. What about their pottery? What makes it so special?
Hungarian pottery is just as beautiful and well-crafted as their embroidery. One of the most famous types is Zolnay pottery from the city of Pécs. It's known for this special glaze that creates an iridescent finish, with colors that can range from deep blues and greens to fiery reds and oranges.
Wow, iridescent pottery. Sounds almost magical. I'm adding that to my list of things to admire.
You won't be disappointed. And beyond the visual beauty of Hungarian folk art, there's also this deep connection to tradition and symbolism. Many of the motifs and patterns they use have ancient meanings, representing things like fertility, prosperity, protection, and good luck.
It's fascinating how those traditional meanings are woven into their art. It reminds us that folk art isn't just about aesthetics. It's a way to connect with history, culture, and beliefs.
Exactly. And speaking of connecting with history and culture, we can't leave out Hungarian literature.
Right. We briefly mentioned it before, but I'd love to hear more. What are some of the themes and styles you see in Hungarian literature?
Well, one theme that pops up a lot is this exploration of Hungarian identity. Hungary has this long, complicated history with periods of being ruled by other countries, revolutions, political upheaval. So a lot of their writers grapple with questions of what it means to be Hungarian, where they belong, and finding meaning in a world that's constantly changing.
It sounds like Hungarian literature offers a unique perspective on history, culture, and what it means to be human. Are there any particular authors or works you'd recommend for someone just starting to explore Hungarian literature?
One writer everyone should check out is Sándor Márai, who we mentioned before. His novels and diaries are incredible. They explore themes of love, loss, and human relationships, all set against the backdrop of a really turbulent period in history.
Sándor Márai, okay, going on the reading list. Anyone else I should look into?
If you're interested in contemporary Hungarian writers, check out Peter Nadas. His novels are often experimental in style and explore things like memory, identity, and the search for truth.
Okay, I'm intrigued. It's amazing how Hungarian literature reflects their history and culture, while also offering these universal insights into the human experience.
Exactly. That's what makes exploring other cultures so enriching. It expands our understanding of the world and challenges us to see things from different angles.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving into the cultural side of Hungary with you today. I feel like I've learned so much and gained a whole new respect for their rich traditions.
The pleasure's all mine. And you know what? There's still so much more to explore. We haven't even talked about Hungarian food yet.
Oh, that's right. We can't leave out the food. I'm ready for a culinary adventure.
Get ready for some paprika-infused delights. We're diving into the world of goulash, chicken paprikash, and a whole world of Hungarian specialties after the break.
Okay, I am so ready for this. Goulash! Here we come.
Our podcast discussions are based on our eBook, Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. History, literature, art, music, science, sport. Scan the QR code or check the link in the description to download your copy of Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. As a special bonus, you'll also receive the Illustrated Companion, featuring over 100 detailed illustrations to visually enrich your understanding of the book's content. Thank you for watching.